Hello there, it is Mr. Reese doing this timeline revision session. It's really important that you know exactly what happened in the course for the Germany part of what is it, paper 3. So this presentation should help you with that. So the first thing you need to know is in 1914, Germany gets involved in the First World War. So the blank there should be outbreak of the First World War. And Germany, as you can see in the picture, is fighting alongside Austria-Hungary, but also the Ottoman Empire. They're fighting against the United Kingdom, France, and Russia, and later on, the USA joins the war. Okay, so in 1917, in April, a country joins the war alongside the Allies, and that country is, you're gonna have a little guess. The answer is the USA. I said it previously. Okay, so 1918 is the start of the course, and there's some quite key things that happen. So by autumn, around September, October of 1918, there are some really clear German losses in the war. So what happens is there's a new German government set up, led by Prince Max of Baden. Now, you've got to understand that this part of the course is quite chaotic for Germany. They're in the midst of the war, and this is not a settled time. Now, the German military realized that the war was going badly, and they didn't want to carry on the war in some cases because they didn't want to give up their life for a war that they were about to lose. So in October, you get a big significant mutiny in the German Navy, and the Kaiser was under real pressure. And so the Kaiser made the decision on the 9th of November, Kaiser Wilhelm II is his name, to abdicate. So as I say, a period of real instability for Germany. The war is going really badly. It's clear they're about to lose. Their Kaiser has now abdicated. So there had already been a parliament before under the Kaiser. However, the Kaiser very much controlled it, and it really didn't have loads and loads of power. But obviously now that the Kaiser's gone, this parliament will be running Germany. So it's going to have more power, and Germany will become more democratic. So they have a new democratic republic that's set up, and the first chancellor is Ebert. Now remember, this is still a time of instability. They're going to have to arrange this properly further down the line. The first thing this new democratic government republic has to do is it has to stop fighting. So it agrees to stop fighting, and this is called the armistice. So, someone's trying to ring me. I'm just going to decline that. So this is the armistice, and that is in November 1918. So we've got this period of instability. This new democratic government has been set up, but clearly it's going to need some time to get settled. So what they do is they have the first proper elections for this new democratic government in January 1919. And they're going to have to decide what this new Germany is going to look like, because remember, for a long, long time, Germany has been ruled by a king, a Kaiser. So now they're going to have to decide, well, what's this new Germany going to look like? So they have to decide on a constitution, and that's what they're going to be doing in 1919. So a new democratic constitution is set up. Now, there's a spelling mistake there, but there's clearly a lot of unhappiness. Not everyone's agreed with how to sort Germany in the future. So you've got people on the far right, but you've also got people on the far left. So you've got communists who are inspired by what's happened in Russia in 1917, where Russia has been taken over by communists in the Bolshevik Revolution. So there are communists who want the same to happen in Germany. So there's a big uprising in January 1919 called the Spartacist Uprising, but this fails in Berlin, mainly because the new democratic government makes a slightly strange decision to call in a bunch of ex-soldiers called the Freikorps to help them. Now, this was controversial because the Freikorps really didn't like democracy, and they didn't like the new government. However, the Freikorps make the decision they are going to help the government because they hate the communists even more than they hate the current democratic government. So look, the Spartacist uprising, this communist uprising, fails in January 1919, but the communists will still remain quite influential in German politics. So another unpopular decision this new democratic government has to make is in June 1919, when it agrees to the Treaty of Versailles. Now, they're pretty much forced to agree to this, because if they hadn't have agreed, the chances are the Allies, Britain, France, the USA, Belgium, could have continued fighting Germany, and this could have been even worse for Germany. So they make the decision, they will agree to the Treaty of Versailles, and you need to know about some of the things they have to agree to. The main one is the £6.6 billion in reparation payments. So this new government, they've taken about 6 or 7 months to decide it. Well, actually, I say 8 months. In August of 1919, they agree the new constitution, and they call it the Weimar Constitution because Weimar was a place in Germany where this new government met. At this time, just after the war, it was too dangerous to meet in Berlin, so they meet in Weimar. So this period of Germany is called Weimar Germany, the Weimar Republic, and this is known as the Weimar Constitution. So you need to know about this constitution, you need to know about the strengths and the weaknesses. For example, they had a president that was going to be elected every 7 years. They had some strengths and weaknesses. For example, the president in a state of emergency could rule without power, without the consent of the Reichstag. So there are these things that you need to know about because later on Hitler will exploit the weaknesses of this new Weimar constitution to make himself into a dictator. So at the same time, a pretty unknown figure joins the German Workers' Party, and his name is Adolf Hitler. Okay, you can see where Weimar is in Germany from this map. Okay, so here are the strengths and weaknesses of the Weimar Constitution. I won't talk you through them, but you can pause and have a look at them. Same for the Treaty of Versailles. These are the main terms that you need to know about. Okay, so skip forward to 1920. So we have now another putsch, another attempted takeover. We've had the communists. Now it's another group, people on the far right. They have very traditional views. They wanted Germany to be a strong military nation. They wanted Germany to have a strong leader with a strong army. And this group in particular, they want to have the Kaiser back. They really, really want Germany to focus on traditional values. So this is called the Kapp Putsch. It's led by someone called Wolfgang Kapp. And this time the Freikorps, who had only just in 1919 had saved the government, now actually turn on the government and they tried to take power in Berlin. However, for the democratic government, they're lucky because all of the workers in Berlin go on strike, and the Freikorps and this new Kapp Putsch uprising, they can't run Germany. They can't even control Berlin. So the whole thing fails and the government stays in charge. So this democratic Weimar government survives. At the same time, the German Workers' Party is renamed the Nazi Party. 1921, Hitler is starting to develop his reputation. He is seen as a strong leader, and so he is made the leader of the Nazi Party. And they also form the SA, which is going to be the party's own private militia, which is going to protect their own political meetings. Remember, there's a lot of violence going on in Germany politically. There's been assassinations, rival political parties are beating one another up, beating other members up. So it's important for the Nazi Party that they protect themselves, but they're also going to be using the SA to intimidate other political parties. And by the way, just one thing on this, this is seen to be okay because the democratic government, the Weimar government, realize how dangerous it is to be a politician. So they think it's fair enough that political parties should have a bit of protection. So the SA is technically allowed. At the same time, someone with quite similar views to Hitler, Benito Mussolini, comes to power in Italy. So this is something that's going to inspire people like Hitler, because he thinks if it can happen in Italy, it could also happen in Germany. So 1923, Germany had to pay a reparation payment, mainly to Belgium and to France in this period. But Germany is in so much debt after the war that it can't actually pay the first payment. So the French troops think, well, either they accept that they're not going to get paid, or they go in to one of the wealthy industrial parts of Germany, they're going to occupy it, and they actually just take out the wealth by taking resources. So they decide to do that, and French troops actually occupy the Ruhr, and the Ruhr is the industrial heartland, not far from the border between Germany and France. So the government is unhappy that French soldiers are on German soil. So what the German government does is the German government supports workers to go on strike. And in order for them to go on strike, the German government says, go on strike, don't help the French by going on strike, and we, the German government, will continue paying you, even though you're not going to work. Now, The problem is for the German government, they already have no money. That's why they're in this crisis in the first place. So they did make the unwise decision to print more money. And that completely destroys the balance of the economy and it leads to hyperinflation. Now, I would say this is a very significant event because it's not just in Berlin, it's not just in Munich. This is something that affects all people in Germany. And whilst there are some people who do quite well out of it, for example, people who are already in debt, this is a really, really bad moment for the new Weimar government. And I would say it is one of the most significant threats because it affects everyone in Germany at this time. You need to know about the winners and the losers of this crisis, but I won't talk about it here. So this is when Stresemann comes into play. Germany is at probably its lowest point in a few years, and the Weimar government looks very weak. He steps in and becomes chancellor, and he does manage to solve lots of the problems. So the first thing he does is he just replaces the old German mark with a new currency called the Rentenmark. And this creates some stability, doesn't solve all the problems. For example, people had lost money before in the crisis. That money's gone. They're not going to get that back. However, this is going to be a bit of a fresh start, and it does create some stability and somewhat solves the crisis. So Hitler realizes that Stresemann has come in and stuff is improving. Now, Hitler realizes that this is a weak point for the Weimar government, and he doesn't want to leave it too late because he knows it's starting to recover under Stresemann. So in November 1923, Hitler thinks this is his moment to take control of government of Munich first of all, but also then Germany, and he wants to become the leader of Germany. So he chooses Munich because this is a place where the Nazi Party had quite a bit of support, and the key thing is he's going to try and take control of Munich and then the rest of Germany. Now, this fails. Hitler ends up being arrested, and the Munich Putsch does not go well for Hitler. But we will see in a few slides that actually some people might argue that actually this is a good opportunity for Hitler, and he does actually do quite well despite the fact that the putsch itself has failed. So Stresemann has also been appointed foreign secretary. So he is now going to be in charge of Germany's relationship with other countries, especially the countries that they were fighting in the First World War, and especially the countries that had forced Germany to sign the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, so here are some of the winners and losers of hyperinflation. It's also important to remember that we look at a couple of these big rebellions against the German government, but there are loads more, and you can see some of those on the screen. So Stresemann is trying to improve Germany's relationship with those countries that had been fighting in First World War. And he does a pretty good job at this. I would say he has some significant successes. So the first thing is the Dawes Plan. What this means is that Germany is going to change how it pays its reparation payments. It's still going to pay the same amount, but it's going to pay them over a longer period of time. And it's also going to be able to borrow money from US banks. So $3 billion is borrowed from US companies and banks. So this is going to help stabilize the German government, German economy, but also they're going to have to pay this back at some point in the future. So it's not free money, but it's going to help the German government economy to recover in the short term. Now, Hitler has been involved in the Munich Putsch, and the government have to send a clear message. He gets put on trial, and he actually does quite well in the trial because he uses it as an opportunity to show off his public speaking. Some of the judges actually quite agree with some of Hitler's ideas. Loads of journalists are present, and it actually makes Hitler quite well known, and lots of journalists are present, and he becomes a bit of a household name. But he gets sentenced to prison for 5 years. However, when he is in prison, the conditions are not too bad. It's almost like he's under house arrest. He's allowed visitors. He's able to write a book called Mein Kampf, and he actually is released from prison early. So he goes for less than a year, and he doesn't serve the full 5-year sentence. Okay, another thing that Stresemann does is, remember, after the Treaty of Versailles, lots of the borders of Germany had changed. So for example, Germany had lost land to France, they'd lost Alsace-Lorraine, they'd lost land to Poland. And remember, they'd also lost lots of their colonies. Now, lots of people in Germany were unhappy with that because they felt like this land was German land, and also there was a lot of German speakers living in this land that Germany lost. So people are unhappy with this, but Stresemann realizes that he needs to improve Germany's relationship with these countries. So Stresemann says with the Locarno Pact, look, I'm happy with Germany's borders. We're not going to make it into a big deal. So this is good because it improves Germany's relationship with Britain, France, Italy, and Belgium. The problem is there are lots of people on the right, nationalists in Germany, who are unhappy. They think that Streseman's a traitor. So someone like Hitler would say this makes Germany look weak and they should never have accepted these borders. At the same time, Hindenburg, who was a really famous war hero, high up in the German army, he becomes the president. So he is going to be the president now for 7 years, because remember, that's how long the president gets. And so in 1932, there will be another election to replace, or for basically Hindenburg to have another vote to see if they want him to carry on. So Hindenburg is going to have the power to appoint chancellors. So he's a very, very, very significant man in German politics. Okay, Germany also joins the League of Nations. This is an example of Germany's reputation improving. Germany seems to be a country that can be trusted, and so it's joining this huge international organization, which will later turn into the UN after World War II. Now, we always assume that Hitler is really powerful and is always powerful within the Nazi Party. Remember, he doesn't start the Nazi Party, the German Workers' Party. He's slowly building his power. Now, by 1926, there's almost a competition. There's two people in the party who are vying for top spot. It's Hitler and someone called Strasser. Now, Strasser had a bit more, his views were a bit more socialist. He wanted the German workers to be better represented. He wanted them to have more power. Hitler has slightly different views and almost wants to protect and work with big business owners, factory owners a bit more. So there is this tension in the party, but 1926 is a good moment for Hitler because it's a moment where the Nazi Party meet up at a big conference in Bamberg, and it's clear from this conference that Hitler is now the dominant figure in the Nazi Party, and Strasser is not as powerful. So Streseman's at it again. This time he signed the Kellogg-Briand Pact, Germany and 64 other nations. It's not a really significant event, but what they all do is they all say, look, if they get into any problems or any tension, they're not going to go to war. They're just going to use peaceful means to try and solve all of their problems. Yet another example of Germany's reputation improving and Germany being treated as an equal to these other countries. Meanwhile, there's an election in 1928. The Nazi Party only won 12 seats. So to put it in context, you need about 250, 260. You need certainly more than 230 votes to be seats to be one of the top parties. So 1928, the Nazi Party, look, they're a small party and they've had some electoral success, but then no one would say in 1928 that Adolf Hitler is about to become chancellor, and no one would say that the Nazi Party are anywhere near getting into power. Final thing in 1929. So remember, with the Dawes plan, Stresemann has borrowed money and he has also managed the reparation payments, so Germany will pay back those payments over a longer period of time. The Young plan is even better than the Dawes plan because he's managed to negotiate a reduction of how much Germany has to pay in reparation payments. So it goes from 6 billion to 1.85 billion. So I think it's fair to say that he's reduced it by about 2/3, right? Someone might be able to correct me on the maths with that. This is a good deal, the Young plan for Germany. But in October 1929, there is a big financial crisis. It's triggered by the Wall Street crash. Wall Street, remember, is a road in New York, Manhattan, where they have the main US banks. So what happens? All these banks crash, and what happens is they need to get their money back. So all of the money that they've lent out, not just to Germany, but other countries as well, businesses all over the world, they start asking for their money back. And they're certainly not going to lend out any more money because they have no more money to loan out. So Germany's economy had recovered in the 1920s. However, it was very reliant on loans, especially loans from the USA. So what happens now is these German businesses are losing this money that they had previously loaned, and they're having to pay this money back, which means that they either have to close or reduce their size or stop selling certain things, stop producing certain things, which leads to unemployment and German businesses close throughout Germany. So this leads to the global depression, and Germany is not the only country that's hit, but Germany is one of the countries that's hit the most by the Great Depression triggered by the Wall Street crash of 1929. Okay, so there is a bit of a debate about the 1920s. Clearly, there is economic improvement, but you obviously need to consider how strong that economic improvement was. So this table here on the board will consider the weaknesses and the strengths of it. You also need to think about, does life actually improve? And some people would say that the 1920s in Weimar, Germany is a golden age. There is a question about that as well. So you need to be able to say why it was a golden age and why it was not. Okay. So the Wall Street crash leads to the global depression, the Great Depression, which also leads to loads of economic problems in Germany, namely unemployment. Now, the key thing for the government of Germany at the time is to solve these problems. However, there is loads of instability in this period. And basically, the key thing is the governments, the chancellors, all the political parties represented in the German parliament, the Reichstag, cannot agree, and nothing really gets sorted. The problems can persist, and Germany is in a real mess in this period. So we get the first chancellor who cannot agree, who cannot get an agreement with other parties, and it's Müller. Müller is forced to resign, and unemployment is still a problem. So Brüning comes in next. Okay, so 1932 is a key year. You get 6 million people unemployed. This is a huge number of people, and this is very problematic. So Brüning has come in, and he has to resign as well because he doesn't have enough support. So remember I said Hindenburg had become president in 1925? Well, he's had his 7 years, and he has to go for another vote again. So there's an election in April 1932. However, Hindenburg, well, Hitler thinks that this is a good opportunity for him to stand. He knows that there are loads of problems in Germany. He wants to try it. Now, Hindenburg wins with 53%, but it's only after they have to have 2 rounds of voting. So Hindenburg wins this election, but it's not as he has to do it after 2. They have to do a revote. So it's not as convincing as Hindenburg would have liked. So remember, Hindenburg is key in this period because Hindenburg is the one who's going to choose each chancellor and is going to hope that the chancellor will solve the problem. Now, the next person is appointed chancellor is someone called Franz von Papen. So he is appointed by Hindenburg. Now, Franz von Papen is made chancellor even though he's not very popular. So they have to have another election because you can't really have a chancellor if they haven't really got the popular support. So they say, look, we'll let the people vote again, and hopefully von Papen is going to get enough vote. He's thinking, I'll get enough votes, I'll show how popular I am with the German people, and that will give me an opportunity to save Germany. So in July 1932, there's an election, and it goes terribly for von Papen. He's supposed to be the chancellor, but he's clearly not popular. And the party that gains the most votes is the Nazi Party. So this is a really significant election in July 1932 because the Nazi Party are now the biggest party in Germany. The first time this has happened for the Nazi Party. So Hindenburg, the president, should really choose Hitler to be chancellor, because usually what the president does is they choose the leader of the most popular political party, which is Hitler and the Nazi Party. However, Hindenburg does not like Hitler. He doesn't agree with his views. He thinks that Hitler's dangerous. He doesn't he doesn't disagree with all of Hitler's views, but some of the anti-Semitism and some of the stronger views he doesn't like. The other thing Hindenburg doesn't like about Hitler is he thinks he's a bit of an upstart. He doesn't like the fact that Hitler's not from a very wealthy aristocratic German family. Hindenburg is. So you could say that Hindenburg is a bit of a snob about Hitler. So he says to Hitler, sorry, you are the most popular politician in Germany with the most votes. However, you're not going to become chancellor. And he says, von Papen, you can remain chancellor. So this is a slightly unusual decision. So von Papen is chancellor, but he doesn't have popular support. So he says, July 1932 was just a mistake. Let's have another election. So that happens in 1932. And von Papen lost even more support. So look, he's lost 2 elections in the space of a few months. He has to resign. But this is interesting. The Nazis didn't actually gain, the Nazis only got 196 seats. So they've actually gone down slightly, and the communists are actually doing quite well. So by November 1932, you've got von Papen is not popular. The communists are gaining in power, and the Nazis are still one of the top political parties. So von Papen resigns, and von Schleicher is appointed chancellor by Hindenburg. Now, von Schleicher realizes that, who have we had? We've had Müller, we've had Brüning, we've had von Papen, and they've all been unable to solve the problems. He says maybe we need to be a bit stronger with our government, and he actually starts calling for them to have a bit of more of a military government. And so that is what happens with Schleicher, but Schleicher is still not popular. So von Papen, he makes a big mistake. Von Papen underestimates Hitler, and von Papen knows that the person who is going to choose the chancellor will be the president, but the president does not want Hitler. Hindenburg does not want Hitler to be chancellor, but von Papen manages to persuade Hindenburg to make Hitler chancellor, because von Papen has gone to Hitler and has said, Hitler, if you become chancellor, let me become vice chancellor. And Hindenburg is also, he's fed up with all of the instability. He's realized that every single chancellor he's appointed has not worked. So Hindenburg has run out of patience. He listens to von Papen and he appoints Hitler to be chancellor in January 1933. So this is when we get the point when Hitler is going to, in the next few years, he's going to make himself from just a normal bog standard chancellor into a dictator. And it's going to take him about a year or so from becoming chancellor to do this. So this is that part of the course where you need to know, how does Hitler consolidate his power? How does he make himself into a dictator? So he's quite lucky that within about a month of him being chancellor, there's a big fire in the Reichstag, Germany's parliament building, a very symbolic building, and there's a fire. Now, there's a communist found at the scene called Marinus van der Lubbe, and Hitler is quite happy about this. Hitler makes the president, Hindenburg, he makes the German public think that the communists are trying to take control by force. They're trying to lead a big uprising that's going to lead to loads more instability in Germany. Remember, lots of people don't like communists because the communists wanted everyone, in terms of everyone's power, to be equal. They wanted there to be economic equality. So very wealthy people are really scared about the prospect of the communists coming to power. So Hitler uses this as an excuse to pass a law, which means that he's going to have emergency powers, and the police are going to have emergency powers, which means that they don't have to have proper evidence to arrest people. They don't need to have loads and loads of evidence or clear. Basically, the police can arrest whomever they want. And they use this as an excuse to arrest loads of communists, including communist MPs. So the communists have been really badly affected. Loads of significant communist members are in prison. So this is key, and we can see there's the decree for the protection of the people and the state. So the police have loads more power. Now, Hitler wants to make a law that is going to give him loads more power. He doesn't want to have to rely on other political parties in the Reichstag to pass a law. Because remember, if Hitler wants to change any law, he has to get the other MPs in the parliament to support that. Now, Hitler does not have enough MPs from the Nazi party in the Reichstag to get a majority for laws. So Hitler is reliant on other political parties, some of which don't like Hitler, to get any new laws passed. So Hitler wants to pass something called the Enabling Act, which means that Hitler can pass any laws he likes without having to get votes from the Reichstag. So ordinarily, Hitler would not be able to get this passed. However, Hitler has created so much fear. He's using the SA to put pressure on other MPs in the Reichstag. He's also arrested so many communist MPs that when this vote comes to, when the Enabling Act goes through the German parliament, enough people support it under pressure from intimidation from the Nazi party. The Enabling Act gets passed. And this is a very significant moment, because it means now that Hitler can pass whatever law he likes, and he doesn't need other political parties to support it. So now he uses this as an opportunity to ban all other political parties. So the Communist Party, if they now meet, if they now have an office, anything like that, they can just get arrested because they're actually been banned. They will be seen to be an illegal organization. Now, Hitler has reduced the power of other political parties. He's banned things like trade unions, which represent workers. The next thing, he's going to try and get rid of threats within the Nazi Party. We've spoken about Hitler and other people within the Nazi Party. So we've talked about Strasser. Hitler is quite worried about the SA, especially the leader of the SA, Ernst Röhm, because remember, Rome is in charge of all of these SA members, who are many of whom are ex-soldiers, many of whom have got weapons. So this is seen to be a big threat within the Nazi Party. So Hitler uses the Knights of the Long Knives. 400 members actually of the Nazi Party and SA are murdered, and Hitler reduces this threat. Now, the other thing is Hindenburg, remember, who was the president, dies in 1934. Now, this is just, Hindenburg was an old man at this point. This is a natural death. But Hitler uses it as an opportunity to combine the position of Führer, of president and chancellor into one combined role, and it's called the Führer. So Hitler gets the people of Germany to, there's a referendum, and 90% of the German people accept this. The other thing that happens in August 1934 is Hitler gets the German army to swear a oath of loyalty to him. So now Hitler has increased his control over the Nazi Party, but also he now has the support of the German army. The German army, one of the things, the German army was happy with the Knights of the Long Knives, by the way, because the German army and soldiers within this army were worried that the SA was getting too powerful. So actually Hitler has managed to, increase his support amongst the German army. So by the time we get to 1935, Hitler's been in power for a year and a bit. And one of Hitler's big policies is going to be to reverse some of the things in the Treaty of Versailles. He saw it as a humiliation for Germany. Now, Britain and France and the USA, they were prepared to let Hitler get away with a few things. Some of them looked back at the treaty and thought, oh, it was quite a long time ago, 1919. Things are very different now. We should be looking to forge peaceful coexistence with Germany. So they're prepared to let Hitler make some changes to the Treaty of Versailles. So the first thing is the Saar was returned to Germany from Britain and France, which was a bit of Germany you can see in red on the map. Hitler starts to rebuild the German army because remember, it had been reduced to only 100,000 soldiers from the Treaty of Versailles. German people between aged 18 and 35 now have to do 2 years military service. So that's obviously going to help them to train to be soldiers in the future if Germany ever goes to war. He launches the Reich Labor Service, which makes German people do certain bits of work. So, for example, to help build motorways. He also introduces the Nuremberg laws, which is a significant set of laws which permit the persecution of Jewish people. 1936 is the Berlin Olympics. And 1936, Hitler remilitarizes an area called the Rhineland. The German army is moved back into this part of Germany, which is right on the border with France. 1938 is Kristallnacht. This is a very significant moment in terms of the persecution of Jewish people in Germany, because this is the first time where there is mass violence used against Jewish people in Germany. And there's no evidence that loads of ordinary German people got involved, but the German authorities, the police, did nothing to stop this. And this is a time where Jewish properties, shops, homes, and synagogues are all attacked. Okay, now, as we get to the end of the course, and it's only when we get to the end of the course in 1939 that we start to see the mass murder and genocide of Jewish people. So we get some Jewish people eliminated. That's going to happen in about 1942. We're going to get gas chambers being used. But in this period here in 1939, the SS are starting to remove German Jews, and Jewish people are going to be forced into ghettos. And this is just before the outbreak of war in 1939. Now, the key thing is death camps and gas chambers do not happen in our part of the course. It's only later on that that happens. Okay, so some questions about the Nazi rule. You might want to consider how life changes for women under Nazi rule. You'll see we've got some past paper questions here. We've got the specification and questions that have come up in previous years. An example of how to answer the different questions. Okay, I'm going to stop the video now. I hope you found that useful. I'm very much hoping that I actually was recording.